All right. Well, we may be live. We should be live now again. There we go. We are back. So we got spammed on our original stream, and Amazon wisely ended that one. So we are back live again. And I am D. Scott Smith. This is my wife, Christine A. Smith. And we adopted 3 times. And we just wanted to take this opportunity because, we've just gone through the Juneteenth celebration. And
Yes.
it's yeah, we are a mixed family. So we, as white folks, have adopted African American kids. And of course, I come from a mixed background myself, being Mexican and non Mexican. And, our family was very welcoming, but we wanted to just have a discussion about what it was like to go through the adoption, how we started the process. We started this up. We ended up getting spammed and shut down. And so we're back again. And so, Christine, let's start from the beginning again.
All right.
So we adopted 3 times. We go ahead. Start
Sure.
the story.
Almost 30 years ago, at least 26, 27 years ago, one of the phrases that came up was calling ourselves a multicultural, multiracial, or multi-ethnic family. And I don't know if that's been changed, upgraded, updated since then. Maybe somebody can let us know someday if there's a new phrase to describe our family. But I always say because our children are ours by adoption. And that's the truth. When we received those birth certificates, we're listed as the parents and they are listed as our children. And that's the way we feel because I've checked with my kids and that's the way they feel. and that's the way that we, I guess, function as a family. A lot of families have children that they biologically came by. They have children that they have been a foster parent for so many years that they are now family. And it's a feeling, it's a family, and it's the way you function. There you go. I got my alliteration in for today.
I love that
Didn't
part.
even practice.
It's funny because when I think back about our story, and we adopt 3 times.
Mhm.
And when I tell people, because they want to know, what's it like? What was it like to adopt? And I said, well, our adoption was just like everyone else, completely unique. And all 3 of our adoptions were very different. Originally, we were looking at going international, and we were working with an agency. And in fact, we were because we were older, we were in our 30s, and we were looking at a family or sibling group. And so we were going to go off to Peru. And fortunately, we knew people down there, and because we would have to spend a month in Peru and go through the adoption process, work with the U.S. immigration and get all the stuff taken care of. And then we got a phone call. Well, I got a phone call at work that said, just less than an hour away from where you are, there's a lady getting ready to give birth. She would like to be able to maybe select you as the adoptive parents. And that's what happened. Well, actually, I said, I'll say yes, but of course I need to call my wife, who you said.
Yes. He said, I'm sure that my wife would like a brand new baby, even though we had prepared ourselves mentally for children of various heights and ages.
That's right.
And so we had to change, and they told us, keep your knees bent as if you were going down a slalom course. Just figure that everything that you decide could change at any moment. And for everyone listening, go back in time to where there's a phone at your house and there's a phone at a desk at work. So everything that you're doing, you just kind of have to hope the other person picks up the
That's
phone.
right.
There was no text messaging. There was some emailing, but how often would you check that?
Well, I do have to say I was early on in the adoption in the adoption of phones, bringing phones into our life because I remember
Adoption.
because when we were selected by that birth mother to be the adoptive parents, and we were there in the hospital when she was delivering, and I used our very fancy cell phone and the very few minutes that we had
Mhm.
to call the grandparents and let them know that they were officially grandparents when our first daughter was born. So, yeah, things have come a long way, but
Yeah.
that was the first adoption. The second adoption was many miles away, and you had a lot of
Yes.
adventures to go through, um, traveling, just
Mhm.
traveling for that.
Yes, for that one, I did receive a very fuzzy picture with kind of little stripes of color through it,
Hmm.
of a little baby that was resting on a pillow on the sofa, tiny little 2, 3 week old girl. And the little finger was up like this. And I looked at that picture while I was on the airplane. I
Hmm.
traveled separately from you because we knew that it could be quite a few days, maybe even weeks before I would get a court date
Hmm.
set. And that at that point, I would call you, maybe on your cell phone, but probably on the house phone,
On the house phone. Yeah, we're at
and
work. Yep. Hmm.
yeah, and let you know we've got a court date, so get your plane ticket. And it did take a few days, but yes, it was an adventure with an
Mm.
unexpected layover and a situation in that city where there were no rooms available anywhere in any hotels for 50 miles around. And it wasn't the the crisis that we've been through recently. Obviously, this was many decades ago. It wasn't a crisis at all. Everybody was coming into town to get college going and to do
Hmm.
Major League Baseball and some other sport was going. I don't know what was
Oh
all
yeah,
going
there
on.
was it was both pro football and pro baseball and college sports
Yes.
going on.
Yes.
Yeah, when you went
Yes,
in, yep,
exactly.
no
So
room in the inn.
World Series and everything was going on. So I actually drove in the pouring rain in a little rental car to the foster family who was so sweet and so gracious to allow me to stay there until some rooms started opening up in town. And
Hmm.
so it was about 2 o'clock in the morning when they allowed me to come in as a complete stranger who had only emailed them and talked maybe once on the phone. And so that's when I saw this little teeny tiny baby, and I fell asleep
Mm,
until she needed someone, and managed to uh, take care of the formula and everything. So
yeah.
yeah, that was the beginning of our second addition to the family.
Hmm. Yeah, and then the third one was on the far side of the continent.
Well,
To
far
go
side for us.
to far side of the continent. Yeah, we were separated by a continent, so baby's on one
Yes.
side, we are on the other. And once
Mhm.
again, thanks to a very generous uh, foster family, we got to stay with them
Yeah.
as well.
Yes. It was wonderful. Spend so much time there, and they were just fascinating people. And I
Hmm.
do remember her saying, um, I got my nursing degree and I just couldn't handle the sadness
Mm,
of being in the hospital situation and maybe doing end of life with some of the patients. And she said, I thought, What can I do with all my medical background? And then she realized, oh, how about beginning of life? And so they, as a
I
couple,
like it.
did that. In both situations, both foster mom and foster dad were as involved as they could be with the baby, to the point where the foster father saw me. I was about to put some lotion on our baby boy, and he said, "Don't you put that cold lotion on that little guy. You warm it up in your hands first." And boy, I was okay.
Yeah,
And
I tell you.
they had become so attached in both situations. They become so attached in just a few days because of the huge love in their hearts and the huge capacity to invite anyone into their home, knowing that
Mhm.
that little someone was
That's right.
probably going to be gone in a number of days. So amazing. Foster, my cousin and her husband are also foster family and have been so for so many years. And well, they kept two, so that was good.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna again say we are discussing what it's like to be adoptive parents, and in the chat you can go ahead and ask us questions, and we are happy to share about our experience. Again, we adopted 3 times, and our youngest has just graduated from high school. And all 3 of our children we adopted as infants. They were
Mhm.
really just weeks old, and so we started with them from the very beginning. We didn't bring them into the family as older children. Sometimes people adopt, especially out of the
Right.
foster care system, where the children are older. And I have, yeah, actually in the carousel, I've got the link to the movie Instant Family, which came out several years ago. And I'll say it's done very well. It is a particular type of adoption story. Um, but anyway, we did as a family enjoy watching that movie as well. So, um, but again, we
Yes,
adopted as our kids as infants, and as you said, um, there was a lot to learn.
I recommend that movie, but probably more important, our daughter, our middle child, and I guess I can announce this, and her fiance have also both seen Instant Family and thought it was really good. It was really helpful
Mm,
for
yeah.
someone who's going, I'm kind of interested, but what could this be like? And it just kind of shakes it all out there.
Hmm.
How this is different. This is different than saying, oh, look, it says I'm pregnant. It is very different.
Yeah. As we're talking about, you were as well as an educator. You are an educator in that you were teaching pre-adopt classes, and we actually had to do that because we were working with an agency, and
Mhm.
one of the requirements is that you go through and take these classes. But it's more than just about adoption. They actually talk about parenting and parenting skills, and
Mhm.
how do you separate the different tasks around the house. You've got laundry and dishes and shopping and
Hmm.
yard work and all these kinds of things, and we talked about those. And I remember going through that and thinking everyone should have to take this, not just adoptive parents.
There were a couple of times where I thought anyone who's ever thinking that they might be a parent, wow,
Mm,
if they had the opportunity to enjoy and to learn and to experience some sort of pre-parenting class. Oh,
mhm.
that sounds almost more like you're going to have homework and you have to have the right answers. So we'll call it a webinar since everyone's kind of used to that. If there was a
Yeah.
parenting webinar,
Mhm.
just about, these are the sort of things that you will deal with or that you will get to discuss and make choices about. and just went through all that, more than maybe carrying around a sack of flour and knowing that you're going to be responsible for that child, how to
Right.
do it as a couple, and maybe how to parent as a single parent. I mean, all of that would be
Mhm.
so helpful. Even if you've, for example, many in our family are military families. And so one parent kind of has to know how to single parent and then
Mhm.
adjust back to dual parenting. But I
Yeah.
digress. Back to adoption. What else do you have in the carousel besides that movie that I highly
Yeah,
recommend?
I had thrown in, just a couple of different books in there about the connected parent, and also a couple on Juneteenth and the Juneteenth celebration. Because again, we did adopt African American children, and it's that there are adjustments that we had to make, things that we didn't understand, and we're still learning. And we adopted 25 years ago, and
Mhm.
we've been learning along the way. And I'll tell you, getting books, being involved with other individuals. We're fortunate because we live in a university town where we have
Yes.
the ability to just learn and connect with
Right.
other
They're very
folks.
proactive about having spaces, literally buildings for different ethnicities,
Hmm.
different backgrounds. And we've brought our kids to like an African night of
Hmm.
music and fashion. And we've talked with our kids even more recently when names of school buildings were
Mm,
going to be changed, because this was a really good time to
yeah.
say what traditions have been so, you know, deep in the history of our town that we haven't really explored what it's all about. And I said to my son, who is pictured behind my husband, I said, this is what they're doing and this is why. And I was reading some of the information to him and he goes, that makes sense to me. And so I chimed in and I um, gave my thoughts and my son's thoughts, as everyone in the district were able to
Mm,
participate in. And I'm kind of excited because one of the names that has been chosen is one that I also chose. And that was based on when I took my children to an interpretive center in a different part of our state. And when we were there, there was a display about how apparently, I mean, I'm going to say it's an interpretive center.
right.
Apparently, the
Yeah.
first African American person made it to Oregon and they were hidden inside of a covered wagon. And everything they went through, every way in which they gave of themselves for the sake of the family, and how eventually that lady um, started a family here in Oregon with so many obstacles to navigate. And
Mm.
I was so proud to share that with my kids. You know, I thought I was bringing them for an education about the Oregon Trail, and it ended up being an education for me again.
Yeah, I'll just say that in our community, back when they were naming streets and schools, we kind of took the easy way out. We have numbered streets, and then they just used the president's names,
Mhm.
and then they went and named the schools the same way. And I'll say that recently they've been more intentional about considering what the people represent. If they're naming the school after a person, what kind of life, what kind of example did they live, and how does it fit with our current sensibilities? Because some of the people that we had named buildings and schools after, really didn't exemplify what we value today. And so, having gone through in this process, it was
Mhm.
really community involved, and it
Very.
did provide a great opportunity for us to discuss these situations with our children and get their perspective. Because uh, my son is
Mhm.
African American, and being a black man in the United States today, there's a lot of challenges that I will never understand, even though I'm there with him. And I've been with him as he's grown up through these 18 years,
Mhm.
and I'll be with him as he continues on. Um, and so to really listen to him and to listen to what he has to say has been very helpful. And then to be able to add that into the discussion with the community as we're considering how do we name these schools. And so when you were talking about that and how she was able to buy a house, even though at the time it was not legal for her as a black woman, as an African American woman, to own property, it's just unbelievable.
I know the determination there. I see that same determination in in our kids. I look forward to the future. No secret here. I look forward to the future when I will have grandchildren. And that's why I really wanted books on Juneteenth, and
Hmm.
so that I will have something that, in the future when I'm grandma, I will be able to sit with my kids and sit with their friends and
Hmm.
have a beautifully illustrated or a carefully, intentionally written story that I can share with my kids and with their friends, and they can understand more than you and I
Mm.
were exposed to. Your mother was always very clear with the girls to say to them, you are, um, women of color.
Hmm.
And so this is all the good that comes out of that. I know what it is like from my background, which was Mexican. I know that much, and I know that,
Hmm.
what proud means being a grandmother, and what it is to instill in you and to tell you to be proud of exactly who and all that you are, which goes for everyone. But it is different when your parents don't look like you. And that's
Hmm.
something that in the pre-adopt classes, which is something that I taught not for money at all. It was a volunteer situation so that I wasn't pushing the agency, but
Hmm.
instead I was just answering, really out there questions. And one of the questions that people have asked us through the years is, why didn't you adopt children that looked like you so you would
Hmm.
look like a family that had been created, out of biological mechanisms? I don't know what to call it, but you didn't do it
Right.
on your own. You didn't
Sure.
have these kids on your own. And it was easy to answer that in two ways. One, I would have asked the same question during all that time that I thought I was just going to give birth to children and that would be our family. I wondered why some people didn't adopt kids that looked like them. Why didn't you just wait until you found one like that? Secondly, I was able to tell them, well, we adopted our kids because my arms were empty and I wanted to
Mm.
be a mom. So
Mhm.
it wasn't a factor. We didn't go looking for kids that didn't look like us. So we would always look like a family by adoption. It was
Mhm.
just, knowing that there was a child and that there was no parent, and um, it was easy to just run out and buy diapers and go get them.
Yeah, we just passed Father's Day, and you talk about the empty arms, and
Mhm.
so biologically, we weren't going to have children. That
Mhm.
was it, and we also didn't. We also opted to not pursue any of the fertility processes, medical things. We just it was um, we went right to the adoption uh, plan, and I remember thinking, it really didn't matter to me that the kids would have my genetic material or not. It was really, to me, I felt I could be a good father, and I wanted to pass that on. And it was being a father, not, or as they say, being a dad, not just a biological father.
Mhm.
That was important to me, that I wanted to instill in my children what I saw as the values and beliefs that are important to me, and pass that on was more important than the genetic aspect.
Mhm. Being a teacher in classrooms, I really enjoyed children,
Mhm.
and this bit of personal information might help someone who is watching, and that is, I stopped teaching because financially we figured we better make sure that we're able to have me be at home with children. It was
Mm.
our choice. Everyone makes so many, you have to make so many different decisions. And I
Oh
will
yeah.
just stop right here to say that the one thing, if we did one thing right, it was deciding that we wouldn't step forward until both of us were fully in agreement on whatever it was, that we wouldn't feel rushed or urgent or, what will people think of us if we make this decision instead of that decision? We decided we would stay together on this. One of the things we stayed together on was that I would be home with these little ones at least for a few years.
Hmm.
And so we thought we'll try out financially, we'll try out having me just be at home, not earning any money. So here I was at home. And it was during those years that we discovered every month is going by and there is no positive pregnancy test.
Mm.
And
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
I missed being with children. So I went back to teaching for another number of years and just really enjoyed those kids. And I'm hoping that this little bit of personal information helps someone out there that I was, being a good steward of gasoline and I was riding along with one of the other teachers. And I had to stop doing that because that was my time to cry.
Mm.
I would be in the car alone. I just let them know, oh, I won't be carpooling with you anymore. And it was my time. If I needed to, at the end of the day, when all the children went off to their parents and hopped on the bus to go home, and I went home again with no children. That was my chance to go through that mourning, that grieving period of how very heavy nothing feels, of
Mm.
not sharing vacations with kids. So the picture behind my husband is a vacation, and it was a big deal. Since that time, I did go back to work as the kids were older, and we um, paid the money and went to New York City. We saw all the things, we listed everything ahead of time we wanted to see. And so we went on this big trip and saw the sights and interacted with people. And oddly enough, it was just as um, our world was shutting down, but
Yeah,
it was just
it was about 3
before.
weeks. Yeah, we left about 2 or
Yes.
3 weeks, because we were there
End
in
of
February,
February.
late
Mhm.
February of 2020, and, just a couple weeks after we got back, the world shut down, and we wouldn't have been able to have made that trip.
And it was a beautiful week in February in New York City. Everyone
Mm,
was saying, I
mhm.
guess no snow this year. Boy, it's just nothing to talk about. Everything's just normal, no traffic snarls due to ice. Yeah, that changed. But I was wondering, I don't see the carousel on my screen, but I am when I look this way, I can see my husband through a glass door. And I was just wondering in the carousel, was there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
Oh, we've highlighted the things we need to highlight in there, and people can
Oh,
scroll through and see whatever they would like to in there. I was just thinking as we went through the whole Father's Day and Juneteenth, and we wanted to really highlight the fact that we are a mixed race family,
mhm.
and that came about just because that's what worked out for us. We
Yeah.
as we're going through the pre-adopt class, there's a lot of questions that are asked, and people get
Mhm.
concerned about the home study because they think that people are coming in to actually inspect your home and see if it's good enough, if you qualify.
Yeah.
But really, what they're doing is they're coming to ask you the questions about adoption. To ask, have you thought about these things?
Mhm.
And so and they want to do it in an environment where you're the most comfortable. And
Mhm.
some people going into an office uh, outside of their home isn't comfortable. And so the social work actually comes into the house and asks you those questions, like
Mhm.
if you adopt from a different race, how will your family accept that? And some people,
Mhm.
sometimes we get very excited about what the potential is, and you don't think about some of these things. Now, because we were already a mixed family, uh, there was no question for us. I know some families, it might have been an issue, or what they'll ask, how about your community? Would your community accept you pushing, mixed race family through the store? And
Mhm.
these are all questions you need to consider. And this is where you go back to the pre-adopt class, where uh, it's helping you to answer truly to yourself what you are comfortable with. So I remember we were going through the class, the actual physical class, face to face with other folks that were looking at adopting. And one of the families was very open to different types of abilities. So,
Right.
sighted or unsighted, and or deaf or hearing.
Mhm.
And because my wife is an educator, we were comfortable with learning disabilities,
Mhm.
but we weren't necessarily comfortable with blindness. So we didn't
Mhm.
feel equipped for that. And so these are questions that you need to answer for yourself, and these are things that the pre-adopt class helps you address ahead of time.
Which is so different than when someone is pregnant and they themselves they know the background that
Hmm.
is coming into that child, and there's kind of an assumption that they're going to have similarities to one or the other parent.
That's right.
And
Mhm.
so the questions or the things that you end up dreaming about or whatever, it's so different. I
Mhm.
remembered very sadly saying, there's just pages of have you thought about if have you thought about if, and it's again what it would be like to be a parent of a child who has more needs than feeding, hugging, and diapers,
Mhm.
beyond what you think of when you see a picture of a little baby. And I guess I just want to say that as I've watched my friends through the years go through everything from infertility to finding out ahead of time that there is a serious medical
Mm,
problem
right. Yep.
even before they go into the delivery room. These are, you have them too, these friends that have been through, finding out later on that this child is going to um, be sad about something and it just
Hmm.
drives a truck through your heart.
Wow.
And so I would have to say that since one of my friends said, I've decided, or I heard someone say, make your disadvantage into an advantage. I will say that the disadvantage of not being able to have control or the illusion of control
Mm-hmm.
over what our kids would have, what characteristics they would have, the illusion of control. Since we didn't have it, it's kind of like our focus on having children just widened
Mm, yeah.
to, all the what ifs. We just had to know they could all happen. All the what ifs could happen. A lot of the what ifs did, and a whole bunch didn't. All those concerns, all that long list of again the what ifs. What if this child needs? What if this child has? What if this child is, you know didn't happen. So I would have to say it's just like any other normal life. You hear things, you notice things, you have concerns, you go find someone who has experience, expertise, they're professionals, you work on it, and you get to have kids that you take to Disneyland. You get to
That's
have
right.
kids
That's right.
that come and play with your kids.
Mm,
Oh, I just thought of something that I did want to talk about, and that is on just the whole aspect of uh, minority or racism or
hmm.
etc. I recall going over on a Martin Luther King Jr. day. And Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., there's several books that are designed for children. And so my friend was reading this book, and she looks to her children and about two other families, and we're all in her living room, and we're just celebrating this together because we're all kind of education minded moms. And she looked at all those kids and she said something that I didn't say to my little kids. She goes, "Isn't that the stupidest thing you've ever heard?" And I thought to myself, oh my goodness. But what she was doing was she was reading a book and talking about the inequality of educational opportunities. In other words, you are Black, you cannot be in this school. You cannot be
Mm,
in this facility. You cannot attend these classes. You can't be in this part of a building or a bus, and all that. And she was just like, oh, and so she just really expressed herself to the kids. And for a while there, I forgot, and I often do, that I have to step back and look with a different mindset and look and see kind of a picture that people who I will say suffer from a racist mentality would look at this picture and go, why are those children holding hands? Why are they so close together? Why are they enjoying and sharing? And I was amazed. I've been so grateful for all the ways in which people have um, taken a bigger step forward to make sure that each of our kids and myself and my husband
Mm,
know how strongly that we are loved. And I'm just grateful. And yes, our kids have been put down or treated differently or spoken to differently. People have asked, have they ever, no, certainly no one has ever come up to them and said that. But you know what? It's always our white friends that are asking us that. Certainly they've never been through. And I'm like, yeah, they really have. And I'm
mhm,
so, so grateful when one of our daughters was in a situation where someone just literally said, those words that you don't want said to them. That kind of person, if you're going to have that kind of person here,
mm,
I'm not going to stay. And it was a man who my daughter, who's in the picture behind my husband, um, a man came over and she said, he looked to me to be maybe from an Asian background. And he sat down next to me and he just said, I am so sorry that this is happening.
mm,
And it just helped her to know I'm not alone. I'm not being singled out. I'm not the only one who has been hated because I walked into a room.
mhm.
So we've experienced both ends of the spectrum for sure.
Yeah, I'm just grateful for how much progress we've had in dealing with racism and kind of getting it out of the institutional side. We've made progress. So I will say, first of all, we have a long way to go. But as my son and I went down to New Orleans for a football camp in December,
Mhm.
that we got on the plane, we checked into the hotel, we went to restaurants, and we traveled around together. And way back when I was born in the early 60s, there was a time when my son and I wouldn't have been able to stay in the same hotel, eat at the
Mhm.
same restaurants, and would have really risked life and limb in some places. And so here we were in New Orleans, and we're in a big city, we're in the South, and it was not an issue. And so we have come a long way, and that's and one of the things I just want to mention about adoption as well, because um, single parents, if you're single, that there you can adopt.
Mhm.
I'll say non-traditional families, so same-sex couples, alternative couples, there
Mhm.
you can adopt. There's not a limitation around that, and that wasn't always the case as well. So
Mhm.
as a society, we have come a long way. Still more to go, but I just encourage people to again, if you're interested in growing your family through adoption,
Mhm.
pursue it. Find families like us that have been through that and be able to answer questions. And one of the things that both my wife and I discovered as you're going through, we're dealing with so many different individuals. So you're dealing with people at the adoption agencies, and even within the agency, there's different specialties. And then you're dealing with outside organizations, with government entities, with states and
Mhm.
locals, and maybe international. And every one of them has their own area of knowledge and expertise. And so you will get conflicting information even from the same group. And it's going to feel frustrating, but realize people are not trying to lead you astray. They're just trying to give you the best information they have at the time. But it can be really, really challenging.
You said something a few moments ago. You said non-traditional family.
Hmm.
And I'm just like, we're a non-traditional family. It's like, I think I want to
What
hang
is
on to
traditional now? What is
I want to
traditional?
hang on to that label,
I like that.
not because I'm proud. We didn't say to each other, "Okay, we need to make sure that we're not traditional looking by the time we're done with all this adopting." It really was that um, we checked out different agencies. I said when in my memory, we went to one agency and saw their presentation, and my husband was like, "That's it. Let's go get one of those." I was like, "Wait a minute.
Mm,
We
yeah.
shopped at more than one store just to get a sofa. This is this is our family. This is our children we're talking
Agencies
about."
all have different, yeah, they have different programs that they're specialize in. Some will do focus on domestic adoption. Some of the groups will focus only on international, and then even international, it's going to be certain localities within a country. So there's a lot of research that you should be doing as well. So my wife, the
Yes.
educator, as usual, is correct.
Yes. And if you are intelligent, loving, fun, um, normal enough, but not too normal that you're boring people, I can guarantee you that
Mm,
the adoption process will turn you into a blithering idiot sometimes because you're making decisions on paper
mm,
that make you feel like is it all money and problems to be solved, and who's is it going to go wrong, is it are things going to go crazy in a way that I can't handle or something, and then I guess it just makes you dig down just a little bit deeper again and go, so what's really going on here? What's the important thing?
mhm.
It's
Yep.
definitely not a mindless process of, oh, whoops. Um, I guess we're adopting again.
And it's funny too, because as you're going through and you're filling out all this paperwork and you're answering questions, and then you feel like you're answering the same questions again. It's like I gave you all that stuff, and and you feel, I'll say, you feel picked on or singled out. You're going,
A little frustrated.
people who just get pregnant don't have to answer all these
Yeah.
questions, and but although, again, I'll say they probably should. They probably should answer those questions. They should ask, okay, how do you divide up the household chores? And we just ran into some friends yesterday when, as a family, we were out at a local baseball game, and
Yeah.
and the father is the stay-at-home dad. He's taking
Yep.
care of all the little kids and changing
Three
all
of
the
them.
diapers, and
Three of
the
them
wife,
under the
the
age of
mother,
6.
is out doing the full-time job. And so
Mhm.
but these are questions that you need to ask, and I think whether you're an adoptive family or not, these are things that should be voiced, right? You should be
Mhm.
intentional about how you segregate out
And
what you
truthful.
do. Hmm. There
Yeah,
you go.
and
That's
truthful.
another thing. Yeah,
To not go, if this
really. Wow.
happened, would we be
Hmm.
okay with it? Sure, we would. It's like, no, be truthful.
Yeah.
Know where your lines are, know where you're going to draw your line and just go, I'm I'm not going to go there. If I can
Hmm.
speak about a cousin again, different cousin,
Hmm.
we're definitely not the only adoptive parents in our family.
Hmm. Yep.
And um, when a message was received from the agency, that cousin called and said, I just need to say how I'm feeling right now. And without trying to remember, because I mean, this little darling is now a married person living in Europe. So this little
Right.
adopted, this little baby. And so
Mm.
agency said, right now we have a child, but You said no on whatever 15 of all the things that you say yes and no on, because
Hmm.
they want the adoption to succeed. They want you to
Right.
be a family all in and
Hmm.
not be thinking, oh, you know, should we have said this or that? They want you to just already kind of have gone through a lot of stuff.
That's
And
right.
so that cousin has said to me, even in recent years, I'm really glad that you told me to just stick to
Mm.
our plan, because it was simply this. I believe this was the situation that there was a boy who, all of the legal work had been done and was now available. But they already had one daughter. And that daughter, they wanted her to feel involved and to be involved. I don't remember if she was maybe 5 years old.
Mm. Mm.
And she said, I want a baby sister. And
Right.
so that urgency came up. It was like, there's a child ready right now. We could go. Yeah. And it's like, how long will we have to wait until there's actually a female out there?
Yeah.
And so I don't know what I said, but they felt really glad and good that they had said, no, we
Hmm.
will be a parent, but we don't have to just jump because words were spoken. So,
Yeah.
yeah, be thoughtful and be certain and keep talking about it and be certain again.
And I'll just as we kind of wind this down, and I thank everybody that has come in and watched as we just kind of discuss what it's like being adoptive parents and adoptive parents with a mixed family, which I'm grateful that it is much more common today, and that we're seeing more movies and television programs that show mixed families, and so that it's not unique, as you said. This is not traditional. This is traditional. Mixed families. This is the tradition now. But I'll just encourage people, go ahead and watch that movie Instant Family, and
Mhm.
because they do have to go through this education, and then there's
Mhm.
support after the fact. And there's a great scene that so many, I will just say, parents are able to relate to, where
Yes.
they're very cocky, I'll say, about going, we got it handled. We've got a system and it is working. And it wasn't.
It's that bitter laugh, that
Mm,
bitter we're in this together. We know that got
that's
it
right.
all together can change, can be very dynamic.
Yep. Well, Christine, I just want to say, as your husband, thank you for
Yes,
being my
yes,
wife, being
Scott.
on the show here. As we, and I just hope that everyone is enjoying Prime Days. I know there's a lot of opportunities to get some good deals.
Mhm.
We just want to come and share a story. We just be a little bit, as I say, we were going to be non-traditional. We were just here talking about products, but there are some great things to take a look at around adoption and the celebration Juneteenth. Learn about these things, and I guarantee you that probably somebody that you know, if it's not you, has been adopted, is going to adopt, or considered it, because it is much more prevalent. Just as we've talked about within our circle of family and friends, there's a lot of folks that have adopted, and it's it's just been very grateful. And so we're going to end this particular show on Prime Day today. Thank you for watching, and I will give the last words to my wife before we sign off.
Well, I have noticed that every person that I meet is an individual. And if you become an adoptive parent, you just adopted an individual. Congratulations. And it seems that we've said the word tradition and then non tradition or non traditional together. So I won't say that non traditional is the new tradition, but that um, traditions have a lot of different flavors because everyone is an individual. That is my final word.